today, I want to talk to you about Slack. Slack, I guess, is a company you all know. Yes? And that most of you must be using. And the reason we talk about it, it's because it's been one of the hottest companies in the Valley and in the world. They're valued about 3 billion today. So being only 2 years old, they raised $340 million at a 3 billion valuation at a time when everyone says it's a bubble, so we can argue about that a little later. And today they don't have 1.1, they have almost 2 million users, and have been growing 5% week over week for more than 2 years, which is an impressive growth rate. When you read program essays, it always says 5 to 10% growth a week is great. It's easy to do when you have 100 users. It's way more difficult when you have 1 million. 1 million or 2 million doesn't seem so much when you compare it to Instagram, Facebook, or all these B2C apps. But for a paying company, so out of the 2 million, you have 700,000 people that are actually paying to use Slack. It's a very, very impressive number. So Slack is a messaging team, a messaging app that's been built for teams. And they advocated this side to tons of different kind of teams. You have startups and you have teams that put robots on Mars. I guess they choose this example because security is one of the key issues for a company that deals with so much information that's inside companies. If people that put robots on Mars can do it, any startup or any other company should be confident on there. And the people that use Slack love Slack. And that's what one of the most impressive things about the company is that you hear everyone saying how they customize Slack, how they're using Slack for this and this and this, and how impressive it has been for their teams. It's been so impressive that they created a Twitter channel called Slack Love, where they retweet everyone that says Slack is great. So today it's more than 10,000 tweets that have been exchanged, and it's one of their great marketing platforms. So anytime, I mean, you follow only 700 followers, but it's always retweeted, and it's been a great vector for them. But how did Slack get from 0 to a $3 billion company in less than 2 years? It starts with something not every startup has, which is an amazing team. So Stuart Butterfield, the founder, is a second-time founder. He started in 2000. In the 2000s was a company called Flickr that he sold to Yahoo for 35 million in 2005. 35 million seems not so much when you look at the values of the companies today, but post-bubble in 2005, when he sold for 35 million, he made the cover of Time magazine. So it was a pretty impressive success. And he, together with other employees he had at Flickr, decided to start a company. So a lot of the lessons that you're going to see on Slack's success cannot be replicated to any team of 20, 30, 40 first-time entrepreneurs here in an ecosystem that's not the same. And the story is a little more complicated than just 2 years, 3 billion. Stuart Butterfield's dream is actually to build a massive online multiplayer game. So he started his first one called Never Ending Game, and people could exchange pictures on it in the process of the game. And then he saw that so many people were exchanging pictures that were not related to the game at all, that he decided to pivot and go to Flickr. Flickr is the service you all know for photo sharing. It's not as relevant today as it was a couple years ago, but that's how he pivoted to the first successful product. The second one is called Glitch. It's again an online massive multiplayer game that he started. He raised a couple million euros with great VCs in the US and in Europe to develop it, grew a team of 35, and the game never really caught the public's attention. But in the meantime, in the game, he started building a messaging tool between players that was actually pretty successful and pretty efficient. So in 2012, he tweeted this, that he had developed some unique messaging technology with application outside of his own game, and that would be firing most of his team to focus on this new product. So the first thing he has to do in 2012 is to take care of the 35 people he just laid out. He mentions this come one of the most difficult time of his life, and making sure they were great, had great jobs afterwards. And he would focus on building a product, a messaging product that's not yet called Slack. So at that point, he takes the technologies he's been developing with a team of 35 and focuses on turning it into a product. It was just a feature of the game, and now he needed to make it a product. A product that he would use within his own company to communicate all the time. That's a best practice everyone should do if possible. It's not always possible depending on the kind of company you have, but in their case, they used it with their really close inside the company and then opened it very, very, very slowly to the world. Opening this slowly is good. It's not always as easy to do because we like to say that startups feel like kids, and when they say they're hungry, they get food, but it doesn't happen in real life. So preparing for small launch, beta, 50 users, not more, is not always the best, but that's what they did. They launched very quickly. They launched only 7 months after pivoting in 2012 and opened it to a couple teams. He mentions that he's never been so aggressive with his friends and that friends became really, really bored of him asking them to join Slack. And he asked teams to go on Slack, and teams were just a little bigger every time, so he could see how bigger teams would use the product. So the biggest team he had at the time was 80 people, and he found that it was completely impossible to use. People were creating channels all the time. When a new employee was coming into the company, he wouldn't know which channel to join. And the first feature he built for this was just the number of people in the channel and how long it has been, how active it was. It just enabled people to move in more smoothly. And he did this with about 80 teams, listening to his customers all the time, which is something all of you have read in books like Lean Startup, but it's really important not to just follow what they say in Lean Startup, which is build a first product, go talk to customers, go back, and then sell the product. It's a process that has to be done and done and done and done all the time. And it's one of the core things Slack does. They always listen to their customers, whether it was on Twitter with the Slack Love or whether it was on issues. They tried to have all the ticket issues on their product on Twitter because it would be public and it would enable them to answer publicly and show how responsive they were. It's still in their core product. If you do /feedback, it sends them a message and the answer to everyone. We at TheFamily use Slack. We've been using it for 2 years, and they answered 100% of the messages we sent them. The only one where they denied is when we asked for a cheaper price. They say they would never sell a cheaper product. And they did this, opening it to new teams, making the product better until they built an amazing product. And for them, an amazing product was just 3 things that worked perfectly. What do you think these 3 things are for Slack? 3 features that are perfect. No. That's their extra mile. It's the one thing they go beyond. So the first thing that works really, really well on Slack is the search. You can find any messages from anyone, and it's always relevant. It's really important for a messaging app because people want to know that everything they change is not going to be lost, and you don't have to spend hours tagging every message or pinning them so you can find them again. So the first one is search. The second one is synchronization between the different platforms. If you move from your mobile to your desktop, you don't want to have notifications that you missed and conversations that are not at the same stage. So they've focused a lot on this. And the third one was just simply sharing files between people. If you do a 100 megabyte video, you send it to someone, you don't want to wait 5 minutes before being able to do something else. Everything is done in the background. You can find the files on the right. It works perfect. And these 3 core features are the only thing they really focused on. It's important to design a product like this. And if anyone was to kill one of the 3 features, so many people would get really angry. And it should be the same for your product. Many times I have founders that tell me, when should I decide to stop because I don't have the traction? And the easy answer is like, cut your product for a week, see whether people are angry or not. If they're not, maybe you should stop. And for these features, it's what they did. So they did these 3 features, and it's a concept that's been really well explained by Paul Buchheit in a blog post that's called, "If your product is great, it doesn't need to be good." And the example he was giving was the iPod. The iPod, when it just went out, everyone was saying it doesn't have wireless synchronization, you can't edit playlists on the device. But they did only 3 things super well. It was tiny enough to fit in your pocket. You could host enough music to stay live for a day, and the synchronization with the computer was perfect if you had a Mac or iTunes. And that's how he himself built Gmail. Gmail was 1 gigabyte of storage when everyone had 4 megabytes. It had search that worked super well, and it was organized as conversations. Now it seems normal, but it was not the case at the time. And it didn't even have a contact agenda. It was only 2 days of dev, and you couldn't browse it, but it didn't matter. The 3 things were good, it was fast, it was at a gigabyte, and it worked. And then, of course, they made it personal. That's what you told about it, the UX. It's their extra mile. The product is perfect in terms of features, and then they made it really personal. When it's long, it takes a long time to load, you have this personalized message you can put, makes you feel part of your team if it's something you worked on. You can create your own bots. So bots, I don't know if one of you configured bots. We have ones that say, we do slash the name Julie, and it automatically creates a meeting between people. You have slash remind, where they tell you to prepare for a workshop 3 hours before. You can do a ton of things like this, and also automatic ones, like every week. And this personalization makes people own the product, and they make them talk about it. They designed it to perfection. It hasn't changed much since they started, and it's actually work they did really in the very beginning of the product. It's not been done by them. It's been done by a great agency in the Silicon Valley, which not everyone can do if you don't have 2 million euros of funding and no product live yet. Most of the teams would have to build a product, ship it fast, show traction to be able to raise. They already had a couple millions to build a product that's perfect before having to show some traction. So they took this 7, 8 months to make it perfect and design it really well. And if you compare it to the other, and this I will talk about it again, because they're actually creating their own market. When they say only 70% of their users were not using any competitor, they were just saying they were using email or something else. They are completely above anyone else when they're compared. So I don't know if you know people that used HipChat or FlowDoc. At TheFamily, we're using HipChat for 5 months. We had maybe a couple hundred messages a day. With Slack, it's really thousands and thousands of messages every day, and everyone has embraced the product super fast. And if you looked at why people love these, you find everything that I mentioned, plus that it's free. It's not really free, it's just free as a way to start, and then if you want more features, you pay. But you're gonna find the integrations. So the first one was the file sharing, that it synchronizes super well, which you don't find in the other ones, and search is not so well ranked. And once they built this product that's really good for people, and they know it works well in teams that have made the effort to use it, they needed to find the moment where people would love it forever. And this moment for them is 2,000 messages. They know that if you install your Slack, that you invite people in your team, and that you spend enough time to reach 2,000 messages, you're going to be a lifetime client at 93%. So they do everything so that you get there. If you have a mobile app, your aha moment is never going to be the time you download the picture or you download the app. It might be the first moment you invite someone on the network, the first time you're able to put a nice filter on a picture and publish it to Facebook. This aha moment is something that everyone has to work on. And they teach them how to use the product and how to go to the 2,000 messages. So now when you invite someone, when you join Slack and you're asked to invite team members, they tell you to create a couple channels before to populate them with jokes. They even have a poster you can print from their website with the Slack day and a team meeting so that you can explain the product to everyone. So they're really creating all this material around the product to help you get to this 2,000 messages so that your team is going to be effective on the product. And it's also really important for them because selling a product to multiple people is really difficult. If you have a 10 people team and 3 people say, no, I'm never going to go on Slack, no one is ever going to get benefit from it. So it's really difficult to sell this kind of product that needs a network effect. And they kept listening to their customers all the time. So still getting the Slack feedback, the emails, the tweets, and seeing how people interacted. They have this quantitative and qualitative approach where they get, I think, 10,000 tweets a month and 8,000 Zendesk tickets, and they mark them with the number of people that ask this or this or this feature, and also the sentiment that people have on these different features. And then, at that time, 9 months in, they found what the aha moment is. They have a great product that people actually like when they use it. They decide to launch. And launching for them is not, again, launching for any of us. Stewart Butterfield already had connections with many, many, many people in the press, and he explains how he retained and how he stayed close to them, showing them what was impressive about his product. And when he launched, so he started with a TechCrunch article and like tons of other ones, he got 8,000 requests to try the product in the first 2 days. So you would accept them by batches and improve the product over the next week and do it batch after batch. He got 15,000 invites, requests for demo in the first 2 weeks. Amazing success. The product was strong enough to handle all this load, and it was already great and good enough so that people that actually started would keep using it. So yeah, he is really creating his own market as a communication tool. Everyone says communication has been existent in companies, but it was done in a way that's not the same. It was by email, which was asynchronous, now it's synchronous. It helped them, and they're creating another market now, which is becoming the platform on which businesses operate and not just a messaging app. He wrote an amazing blog post called "We Don't Sell Saddles Here," just 2 weeks before launching the PR campaign to his team, saying that he was not selling a messaging product, he was selling more efficient teams. And you should all read the blog post, it's amazing. And if you go on the webpage, they never say that you're gonna have a messaging app that enables you to talk and communicate with your teams. It's designed for more efficient teams, and every argument he has is about how more productive your team is going to be if you use Slack, and not the benefits just of the product. It's the benefits of the users is selling all the time. So yeah, PR, I talked about it, about his launch, but he says he focused a lot on social shares. Because if someone was to recommend Slack, it would be 10 times more efficient than if you read it in TechCrunch or in the Wall Street Journal. So he built all these features so people could say they loved Slack to others. And today he has more than 60% of the users that went to Slack because of word of mouth, which is like an amazing, amazing rate. The only company I know that I met recently that is TransferWise, where they have now 65% also of people that come from word of mouth. And he says that in the beginning of the startup, if your friends don't hate you, it's that you never tried hard enough to get customers. And we struggle with all entrepreneurs finding that 10 first clients. We tell them you should direct message everyone on your Facebook until they download the app. Please all do this. And he did this sandwich video.
So 6 months ago, I get an email from Stuart Butterfield who wants to talk about making a video for his new thing, Slack. It would change the way teams communicate. Change the way teams communicate. I told him my company runs entirely on email and Dropbox, and we were doing just fine.
Yeah, I guess we had a system. I would email with Adam and text with Shady.
JP and I would G-chat. And I would mostly hold my meetings in the utility closet like 11 a.m.
And I was new, so I didn't talk so much.
This wasn't sustainable if I wanted my company to grow, and something had to change. So yeah, we tried Slack.
Slack lets us do all our communication in one place. It's like combining multiple forms of messaging and file sharing into one app. Adam's pretty much in love with it.
You make channels in Slack, which is perfect for discussing specific topics and groups, depending on who needs to be in on the conversation.
Let's try one a little less goofy.
Copy that.
One thing I like is that we can send all kinds of documents right in the app. You can just drag and drop.
Slack integrates with Dropbox, which is amazing because we use Dropbox for everything.
Slack supports lots of other integrations too. Everything from Asana, Google Hangouts, Jira, Papertrail, Pingdom, Pivotal Tracker.
A link to an audio player like SoundCloud extends inline, so listening to it couldn't be easier.
AppSignal, Bitbucket, Bugsnag, BuildBox.
Slack just looks really cool, like something you'd actually want to use. And with the mobile app, we can Slack anywhere, from home, at the office, even.
And on the go.
I like that Slack always keeps my place. I can switch from my laptop to my mobile, and I never miss a thing.
Is this your card?
Yes.
No.
What I love about Slack is how it connects the team with direct lines of communication, business solutions.
She uses it to send funny pictures.
I use it to send funny pictures.
Crashlytics, MailChimp, Reamaze, Stripe, CodeShip, GitHub.
And Adam loves it. His inbox isn't bloated, and he can easily keep tabs on everyone's projects. Slack really has changed the way his team communicates, and all this open, efficient communication keeps his company happy, which makes Adam happy too.
I don't know if you know Sandwich Video. So they're a famous video agency in San Francisco, and basically getting a video from them is like getting a TechCrunch article in terms of visibility. But the difference is you have to pay to get it. A video like this costs about $100,000, and it's even more expensive for bigger companies. That's the special rates he makes for startups. And he's been so successful that he's actually creating a VC fund to fund the startups that ask him to do videos, knowing that if he does the video, the price is going to go up. So that's the kind of thing you can do when you have enough money also. And this video has been built a couple months later when they already had like 50 integrations. Today they're really turning Slack into a platform. They have 250 apps that you can connect with. But you see that they put the focus on mobile and desktop integration. And again, the search is too difficult to show on a video. And it's for more advanced usage. And they kept this amazing customer support. Stuart Butterfield was answering the 10,000 tweets every month on his own for a long time. And then he created a team of 18 people when there were only 50 people. 18 people just focused on answering to all the customers, because the thing he realized is that every interaction he has with a client is a marketing opportunity. If someone complains that it crashed and you offer him 2 months he is going to talk to it to everyone. If you don't answer or you just fix it, it's not the same. So everything went on Twitter because it was public and it could be a great vector of growth. And it's something every startup should do. Every startup should build the best relation with its clients, especially in the beginning. And if you look at the best companies today, they kept this in their DNA. If you have a problem or an Airbnb, you get your iPhone reimbursed if it was stolen. If you say the driver on Uber didn't take the right direction, you get half the fare of the trip back, and you never have any questions or anything that they say. And that makes them so desirable that they have ambassadors and people talking about them everywhere, and makes the 60% referral rate possible. Now, the big question about this kind of product is, how do you sell? So you've built a great product with features that work perfectly. You went the extra mile, and you have an extra super good UX, super good design. You have this big PR. You still need to be able to sell it to teams. No two teams are alike, which makes it very difficult. If you sell to 5 developers, they're not going to use it the same way as if you sell it to a team at Adobe that's going to organize meetings. So they need to create all the material to explain what Slack is for, and that's why they never focus on features, but always focus on what you're going to win from the product as a team. So being more efficient, being aware of everything that happens in the company, and things like this. And it's something we hear a lot when talking about Slack, is some people love it, and the only thing that we hear is that there is too much information, and when someone joins the team and you have 78 welcome notifications, it becomes too much, and it's why they try to teach owners of the product how to ask their employees to use it. For example, at TheFamily, we're fighting not to have direct messages, because direct messages is the only way we don't get information on what happens. And you can actually go back in the statistics of the product and see statistics for each users. And you have users that do like 50% general and 50% direct messages. And you can see the ones that are actually doing 99% direct message. And it helps people teach their employees how to use the product. And it's a B2B product, but it sells like B2C. The only difference is that when you join, you need to invite other people, and they need to use it. If they don't, you lose as a company. Whereas if you're a social network, if you invite 12 friends and one doesn't join, it's just too bad for him. It's not going to change anything to your life. In this case, it's not the same. And selling as a B2B is a new thing for a lot of companies. It sells like B2C with the same kind of marketing as consumer product, but at a pricing that enables them to go team by team. At Adobe, they have 9 teams, but they had 9 teams when they wrote the article about a year ago using Slack, and there is no chief information officer that has ever decided to do it. It's cheap enough so that the manager can buy it with his own credit card and expense the amount every month, and it can go from the bottom. There is a great article you can read about this called the SaaS Manifesto by a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, and it explains how traditional software companies are being disrupted by SaaS companies, because instead of selling to the CIO and going and negotiating for months and then deploying globally, they go from the bottom and invite more and more and more people. And in the end, everyone in the company is using it. It happened for companies like GitHub also. I had a friend working at Google telling me that the first line of code, the most recurrent first line of code is move to GitHub. And you can be sure it's never Larry Page that decided to move everything on GitHub. It just happened in every team, and at the end, everyone is using it. So the pricing is pretty expensive when you think about it. It's free if you have less than 10,000 messages that are searchable. and then it becomes €7 a month. It's interesting because they started at less than €7 a month. They started around 4, and then they raised the price because the product is so good, and no one left. Everyone is okay to pay €2 or €3 more a month. And when he gets attacked on the pricing on the Quora, he says that €7 a month for an employee is less expensive than buying him a chair. If you buy him a nice chair, it's going to be €200. It's going to be over 3 years. It's more expensive than what he does. And he says that the employee is 0.02% more productive than he was. €7 is reimbursed in the first week. So being priced low enough so that people can expense it, don't feel the pain, and if it's good, you can always raise the price. And then you spread across teams. One team has it, invites other people, and invites more people, and then you learn how to use it with hundreds of people, and that's how they got their big contracts. And what they're really, really focused on is now turning Slack into more than a messaging app. It's turning it into a platform. So they started with integrating all the services you have. So Dropbox, Stripe, MailChimp, or any other app, and letting people build bots on top of it. So you have some companies that are just focused on building bots, and Slack actually created its own VC fund, an €80 million VC fund, to fund companies that were going to build products on top of Slack. And now, when I see companies that we have in our portfolio, it's pretty amazing how they turn Slack into the center of their business. I have companies that tell me that every support ticket gets back in Slack, can be sent back to something else. And I even have see companies that use Slack just as a log. Like if you guys code, you know that every action is logged and you can see where the errors were. I see people that automated all their workflow. It's just logging the actions when it worked and when it didn't work in the Slack channel so that people can take actions on it. So they're really becoming the centerpiece of the business. We use it every time a company joins. It automatically creates a channel for them, inviting the founders. It invites them to some specific channels where we broadcast news automatically. It pings them when we have new events. So it's really the main tool we have, and that's really their goal. Doing this, they're actually really creating a market. Everyone thought they were just building a messaging app, which went pretty fast, and they want to do way more. And that's why they raised so much money. No company of 50 people needs to raise 380 million euros to build a messaging app. It's just that turning it into a platform is going to take way longer, and this way longer needs that they need 5 years to build it and be sure of their runway to go all the way to creating a new market. So let's bring us to their fundraising. Fundraising for them was a bit different. They started with money and a team, and then they were able to raise 5 million, 10 million, 60 million, 120, and 180 million in less than a year. That's because they need this money, and they grew to a team of almost 400 people, which is not so much for a company that does 70 million in annual recurring revenue. And they're actually trying to raise more. You have articles saying that they might not get the $5 billion valuation they're looking for, which would be amazing if you see what happens in the Valley these days with all the unicorns being marked down. If they get 5 billion, it's a really, really good sign of their success. And raising like this was only possible because their growth is really, really impressive. So that's the first tweet of Mark Andreessen when he talked about Slack. It had less than 16,000 users, and now it has more than 2 million. 5% a week for 2 years is something that has never been seen. And if you look at all the great companies in the Valley that raised monstrous amounts of money is because they had one thing that was amazing. So Facebook was the first time people spent more time on a service than on TV in the US. Twitter was the highest referral rate that they have ever seen. And Slack is the company that went to 10 million in annual recurring revenue, the fastest ever for a SaaS business. So Yammer took 3 years, Buck took almost 4 years, and Slack did it in less than 1 year. And the trend is still on the same. And we see this when we send French companies to raise in the US, even if they have great metrics and a great user base, great retention, if it took them 3 years to go where a company in the US goes in 1 year, no one is ever going to fund them. No one. I mean, it's going to be difficult. And that brings us to annual recurring revenue. Going from 10K to 100K is pretty easy if you have a good product. Going from 100K to 1 million is more difficult. Then you get it gets more and more and more difficult. Slack is already here where almost no one gets. And if you go from 100 million to 1 billion as a SaaS software, you may be in the, maybe less than 10 companies that do this. The largest would be Salesforce, and then you have like Intuit that does 2 billion a year on the SaaS. So Slack is here after only 2 years. They're going to be here in less than a year. They're now at 70 million in annual recurring revenue. And they have a growth rate that's going to support the rest of this. And that makes it a unicorn that's pretty unique and pretty impressive in the Valley, and that so many people love using. And just to say one thing about the unicorns is that they're always artificially made. It's at one point someone decides that they're going to be a unicorn. It's a bet from an investor or from big clients to bring them there. And Slack has made it super, super fast and seems to be strong enough. And when you talk to, there is a discussion of the founder with the Collison brothers, who are the founders of Stripe, where they discuss opportunities he had to be bought. The last one being published. So 6 months ago, he said he had between 8 and 10 offers he refused, saying that we would end up with more money than he would ever need, and then he doesn't need to sell. The last one that was published was an 8 billion offer from Microsoft when they announced that they were integrating Skype calls for Teams with Appier Ear and Screen Hero acquisition, but that he refused again. And I guess the day he's going to sell, he's going to be building a online multiplayer game with $10 billion. And this time he might have 50 years to succeed. Thank you.